Each reference citation will generally have 4 pieces of information: the author, the publication date, the resource's title, and where you can find the resource. First, let's take a look at how to properly cite authors. In reference citations, authors are listed with their last name first, followed by a comma, and then the author's first initial. If there's more than one author, we list the authors in the order that they're listed on the resource. For references with 2 authors, separate their names with an ampersand. For works with 3 to 20 authors, list all names with commas in between each author. Between the last and the second to last author, insert an ampersand. For works with 21 or more authors, cite the first 19 authors and the very last author. Separate each author with a comma and insert an ellipsis between the 19th and the last author. You'll also run into works listed under group author rather than under individual names. This is common with works from government agencies or certain organizations. For these works, we'll use the group name as the author. Be sure to spell out the full group name in the reference citation. Another situation that you might run into is a resource without individual authors or a group author listed. In these instances, you can use the title of the work as the author. The next element is the publication date. This format will depend on what kind of source it is. Some of the formats that you'll run into are year, year, month, day, year and month, year and season, or even no date at all. Since there are several different possible options for this element, it's important that you check what APA calls for with the specific resource that you're trying to cite. For each kind of date option, you will enclose it in parentheses. If there are 2 parts to the date, such as a year and a month, you will need to separate it with a comma. When using the year, month, day style, only separate the year and month with a comma. If you're unable to find a publication date, you'll use the note date option. For this, you'll type in period D period within the parentheses rather than the date. The third element is the title information. There are 2 general categories for titles: those for sources that are independent or sources that are part of a larger source. For example, if you cite a whole book, that would be considered an independent source. But if you just cited a chapter of a book, it would be considered a source that's part of a larger whole. For independent sources, such as a whole book, you italicize the title. But for sources that are part of a larger work, such as a chapter, you do not italicize the title. For both kinds of sources, you use title case. That means you'll only capitalize the first word and proper nouns within the title. Finally, the fourth element is the source of the work. Similar to the title, this element falls within 2 general categories: an independent work or a work that's part of a larger whole. For independent works, you'll cite either the publisher, database, archive, or website you found it at, as well as the DOI or URL if possible. For works that are part of a greater whole, you will cite the larger work as well as the DOI or URL if available. All of these different elements may seem overwhelming at first, but keep in mind that you aren't meant to memorize how to create all the different reference citations. The APA 7 manual covers how to cite over 100 different kinds of sources. As a student, you'll likely only become very familiar with a handful of them. So if you're ever unsure of how to cite a source, don't be discouraged. It doesn't mean that you're not understanding APA. It just means that you need to reference the APA 7 manual or the APA website.
Created using Powtoon.